live events in the States and outside the country combined are 48 or 49. I think we're just shy of 50. Sometimes they are thematic to the theme, like they try to match the theme. As this year with video games, we have huge big play or big game bonuses, something you see in video games, and those can make or break your score or be the reason you win or lose.
Hello and welcome to another exciting, and boy, I'm talking exciting episode today of Under the Hoodie. I'm Scott Hoyt, host of Under the Hoodie and founder of Fantasy Sports Strategies, who also produces this show. I can tell you that I have been looking forward to this show and this conversation for weeks. Today's guest is someone who is genuinely, and I mean this in the highest regard, helped shape modern fantasy football culture over the last decade plus. This is a person who took an idea that started as a community-driven fantasy league and transformed it into what I consider the most recognizable event in the entire industry. And he brings together analysts, fans, celebrities, athletes, creators. And the best part of that, he is also raising millions and millions of dollars along the way. He's someone I've known, and he's also known constantly challenging how we think about fantasy football strategy every year. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure. Every year he introduces scoring twists and formats innovations that forces the entire community to adapt. But beyond the creativity and the influence, what stands out most is the way he's built relationships and community in this space. He's one of the rare people in this fantasy sports universe that is universally respected, not just for what he's created, but how he treats people. And personally, I've always appreciated how genuine, how humble, and approachable he's been throughout the years. So today, we're going to talk about the origins and the future of Scott Fishbowl, fantasy cares, scoring innovation, and what might be coming next, such as maybe scoring. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about scoring today. Joining me today, and I'm pleased welcome my friend Scott Fish. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Scott. This is a long time coming, and that's a heck of an intro. I don't know that we've raised millions of dollars yet, but we're on our way.
No, I think over the last 16 years, you're getting close.
Actually, yeah, it is. It's definitely over $1 million. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as a marketing guy, I'll spin it with the yes on the end of it. So, Perfect. Hey, one of the things that we like to do, Scott, is when I get on this show is, everyone wants to talk about what's happening now. I like to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the backstory. And I think for people who may not know the full story, I'd like for you to tell them, how did your journey into fantasy football and this industry begin?
Yeah, wow, we can go way back with that one. So I've been playing fantasy football since 1992. My home league, that league is still around today. It's changed a little, replaced members. There's still 2 original members, but we started in 1992. Sometime in the 90s, I started doing more and more leagues and leagues with college players in them. And that wasn't really a thing back then. I called them college farm system leagues. Eventually they turned into Devy leagues, but I went around the internet looking through like chat rooms and forums and stuff like that for this type of league. And it just didn't seem to exist. But that's where I found the fantasy football community. I eventually started writing start sit articles and waiver articles, and then I founded my own site that focused on pushing Devy, this idea of Devy leagues, college fantasy football paired with the NFL, or NFL fantasy football with college players that come onto your big squad eventually. And I partnered with Gary Davenport, who did IDP, and those are the 2 things we focused on, and both of those were super niche. So we got attention for it. We were at top of Google searches and stuff. And somehow it worked out. We created a reader league, a listener league called the FF Oasis Invitational on that. And that is what snowballed and turned into the Scott Fishbowl eventually. But basically, I think where it started for me is I just were looking for other fantasy football players and creative, interesting league ideas, and I searched them out on the internet and started doing content. That's kind of the early days of it.
So in '92, you must still been a part of the fax generation. So I
Uh,
know I was. I was in '89, and I was faxing in my lineups.
no, so that is the right timeline. However, I played fantasy football with friends around me. My dad had started a fantasy basketball, had been in a fantasy basketball Big Ten fantasy basketball league with other teachers in his school. And that's where I learned about fantasy sports. And weirdly enough, they drafted incoming freshmen and kept them throughout their collegiate career. So when I started playing fantasy football, we would draft our players and we'd keep them until they're out of the NFL. And unknowingly, of course, Dynasty's been around since the 70s or whatever, but unknowingly, my first league was a Dynasty league.
Well, could you have ever imagined, and I'm sure you've had this question many times, did you ever imagine you'd literally become one of the central figures in this community?
Nope. No, I still don't even know that that's true. I do
Oh,
feel
yeah, it
like
is.
a fair amount of people know who I am and know what I do, and this community is incredibly supportive of what I do. But no, I never thought that at all. I did make a joke about it once when I won the Matthew Berry Game Changer Award. I was told about 15 minutes prior to winning that award that maybe a little more, but I was told I needed to give a small speech. So I'm like, okay, I need to open with a joke. What's a good joke? And so quickly I scribbled something down. I go up there and I open up and I say, if you had told me 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was starting out playing fantasy football or starting this industry, that I'd be up here on a stage with Matthew Berry and he'd be giving me an award, that makes sense. That tracks. I would have totally believed it. And the crowd laughed and like I but in all seriousness, I never would have expected it. Nothing that's happened in my fantasy journey I have expected, and I really don't take it for granted because of that.
Yeah. And at what point I'm sure at some point, I don't know if it was 5 years ago, 10 years, you realize that this had really become something much bigger than just a fantasy league. I mean, it's a
Oh,
cult. It's a cult following. Scott, it is. You know it is.
yeah. Honestly, I think it was very close to the start for that answer.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it was this reader listener league that we did at FF Oasis for 2 years, and it was a large league. That size league was not done at the time. It was 96 teams or whatever. And I took a year off when my wife was pregnant with our first kid, and just took a year off. Then I came back to it, and I thought, we have something here. This can be a thing. And I think that first year, SFB, that third year or fourth year is right when I realized analysts are wanting to play in this. And because those analysts are wanting to play in this, the fans want to play with these analysts. And I could feel it snowballing already. I think going from 3 to 4 is when I really felt it was snowballing into something.
Yeah. And I suspect that you probably intentionally is why why inclusivity is such an important part of your event.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, and I've only been a part of a few of them, and you initially see that, complete in totality.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
I think,
So I know you've been asked this question many times, but I'd love for our listeners to hear this as well. Do you have a couple most memorable moments or stories from Scott Fishbowl that really stand out to you personally?
honestly, I'm not sure that I do. I think it was, I think right around SFB6 is where it made its biggest jump. And like, I'm thankful to that year, in particular, SFB6 and 7 for sure, but definitely 6, because that is the year that like some celebrities joined, like Tom Everett Scotts and James Rodays. And that's when Matthew Berry joined. And that's where ESPN people joined, NFL Network people joined. Like, SFB 6 and 7 is where all these big name people joined, and we started raising a ton of money for charity and realizing, man, we really have something here. I think I think, some good memories are when we officially got accredited to be a 501c3, and we're able to make partnerships with businesses and matches and all this kind of stuff that in the early days we couldn't. I don't know what I have a lot of great memories, but they're just I've loved everything about this event, just from going to live events and hanging out with the people. And I don't know that I have specific stories more than a huge vibe of wonderfulness. I guess I do have one story if you want it.
Sure.
Las Vegas. The first time I went to Las Vegas for SFB Live, there was we go to this piano bar. We went to a piano bar after
I was
the
there
draft.
last year. Yeah,
Yep,
I was there
yep.
last year.
Yep. So this story comes from the first year I went to Vegas for that, and went to the piano bar after the drafting. And I think it was probably it was the second year of Lives, maybe, or maybe the first or second year of Lives. Anyway, go to this piano bar, and the piano is on stage, like over here, right? And everybody's over on this side. I'm kind of up close to the stage, like I'm the closest to the stage pretty much. And I'm sitting there having a drink, and I'm listening. It's just the vibes are flowing. And I look to my left, and I see all the people from SFB, people from Cincinnati, people from Canada, people from Minnesota, people from like all over New York, Chicago, all these different places converge together for this event. And it made me realize how much bigger than like me or us this thing has become, that it's this unifying, connecting thing where people who never would have met each other are hanging out, enjoying a few drinks, sharing common interests here at this piano bar. And that moment will always stick with me as, holy crap, we've created something incredibly wonderful here.
Yeah, and fast forward, how many between live events and draftable events, how many do you have this year?
I think live events in the States and outside the country combined are 48 or 49. I think we're just shy of 50.
And how many are you going to attend?
Probably about 10 or so, I think.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to double up a couple of the weekends where I can go to a couple that are really close to each other. That's, a feasible distance. But yeah, I'll try to go to about 10. I'll see if I can make it to 10.
I think one of the most, and I think I talked about this in the intro, one of the most, in my mind, the impactful things that you've done from a charity and the community part. I want to step and talk a little bit about Fancy Cares, and it's become such an important extension of your mission. What does it mean for you seeing how the Fancy community rallies every year around charitable causes year after year?
It's absolutely incredible, because I mean, even in the early years of Fantasy Cares, it's never been fully about, donate to Fantasy Cares, we're going to do a lot of good with it, which we do. It's always been, I want to inspire you to do good with this hobby of ours, right? I used to go on shows and I would tag it at the end. And for those listening, a tag is when at the end you say your piece, like, I'm from this place, here's my Twitter handle, etc. I would tag every show I was on and say, if you're in a fantasy league, for money, for if there's entry fee, whatever, give one of those entry fees to charity, any charity, doesn't matter which one, whatever you or your league is passionate about. Convince your league to give one entry fee to charity, because there are hundreds of thousands of fantasy leagues, and if every single one did that, we can do like an insane amount of good out there. So I kept pushing that for the longest time, and really Fantasy Cares was founded on the idea of, let's inspire people to do good with this hobby of ours. And so that is my prevailing thought continually, and it's so impressive that people take that to heart and do that. And even if they're not helping or giving to Fantasy Cares, they're figuring out a way to, support other causes with their fantasy leagues. And I think that's going to be my lasting, likely favorite part about Fantasy Cares.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've been able to certainly witness, and saw this on several occasions, is that the culture that you've created is almost a very collaborative culture, in that it's supportive of your cause, rather than being, oh, I got to win. I've got to win. I got to win.
Right.
It's not a competitive. It's competitive because we all like to play and we like to win. But I think it was very intentional on your part from the beginning to make sure more about community and creating a cause. I
Yeah.
suspect that that's probably correct.
Yeah. It's always been about community for me. That's,
Yeah, well,
it's,
and that shows.
yeah.
All right, Scott, we're going to talk about the subject that probably when I first started this podcast, they're probably going, come on, can you get to what really we want to talk about? Let's talk about the scoring. Well, folks, it just got launched, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it. It's going to be 2 words:
Mhm.
big plays.
Yeah. That's fair.
Big plays.
Yeah.
And once you see, and I'm sure everyone's heard me. Listen, Discord was all over the place. X was all over the place. People were talking about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to hear the live announcement, but I certainly saw it all over Discord. And of course, I pulled it up. Here's your scoring right here. I pulled it up, and I listened to it again last night. And and you guys did a mock draft, which I thought was really interesting. I want you to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
But when you guys get into the scoring system, and we're going to talk about this year's, but when you get into the scoring system, I mean, how much time and thought is really, and how much time do you spend with all your influencers saying, okay, what can I do this year that's different from previous years?
A lot more than people probably think.
Yeah.
The scoring is the scoring and settings are consistently, they're thought about a lot. Let's just say that. Sometimes they are thematic to the theme, like they try to match the theme. As this year with video games, we have huge big play or big game bonuses, something you see in video games, and those can make or break your score, or be the reason you win or lose. So SFB 9 and this had that, but sometimes it's the NFL is talking about our sacks and offensive line stat or a quarterback stat. And so I made sacks a scoring category for 1 year. Justin Hunter last year was a big topic, his defensive scoring. So last year I was like, maybe we should give points for anything a player does on the field. Volume is earned. Let's reward volume both on the offensive and defensive side. So we did that. Many years ago, I introduced 3RR because through a 3rd round reversal, because we went through a stretch where that was just a better way to set your draft. And I wanted people out there to realize that this is something you can do in your leagues. We've been super flex since the beginning. We dropped in points per first down in the early days of points per first down, and we've really kept them. I'm a champion of those. I think they're enjoyable and a fun thing to both watch and statistically look at. But I always like to try to make the positions balanced across each other, so that when you're drafting, you can use any strategy you want and come out and be happy with your team. And it creates an immense amount of draft chaos. So I look at it. There was another year.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, there was another year when kickoff returns changed. I added return scoring and messed with that too, because it's something that's been talked about. Basically, every scoring or setting thing I've done has been meant to make people think and create conversation. And I feel like it usually works.
Well, I would say this, and I say this with the utmost respect, is that the annual scoring reveal is probably the most anticipated event other than for fantasy, other than maybe the NFL draft.
I don't know about
I really
that,
do.
I love it.
I mean, the people just cannot wait for the reveal. And then when the reveal happens, and then Discord goes bananas in a whole bit. And it's really good, which I think is great for the state of the industry and for the conversations and the community that it creates. And I am sure that there's a lot of thought, intentional thought about you do with scoring. Yep. Is there any philosophy behind creating this balanced chaos in your scoring? And I think that's kind of maybe the one way I look at it.
I think I mostly went over it, but I think the biggest part is, I think the biggest part from the early days, at least, and has still stuck true to this day, is that even it puts fans and analysts on a little bit more of an even playing field where they all have to figure it out together. Where someone who does 100 drafts during the offseason or does this as their job, they have to still sit back and kind of think about it and figure out how to draft for it instead of just going on autopilot and barely considering it, just drafting how they would draft any other draft. I do think that is one thing I haven't mentioned yet that is key to what I want to do with scoring and settings usually.
Yeah. So the other controversy has been year after year. It was last year, remember that? And I think there's still some unknown business around the 3RR. There's some chatter around there that you're still going to pull a fast one and reinstitute 3RR again.
No.
Can I get a definitive yes or no today?
You can. There is not going to be 3RR this year. I can't speak for future years. If there is a scoring that says that we need it, I would bring it back. But at this point, I've done third round reversal for 4 straight years. We're going to take a break from that, at least for this year, if not a year or two more.
Yeah, I know. Remember last year, you wanted to get rid of it last year, but there was so much peer pressure.
I know.
You were forced to make that change.
I know. Even the invite emails did not list third round reversal. It did every other year. The emails did not last year, and I figured that was enough. But no, apparently I needed to write an email in big bold letters, not 3RR this year or something.
It's funny how people, because they can pick their own draft slot.
Yeah,
you can, and there's a lot of thought that goes in to, okay, if this happens, should I be in the back end of a draft or should I be in the front? There is a lot of strategy. Mm-hmm. So this year I picked 2. I went 2 just because I just had a feeling that 3RR was going to be done based on last year's controversy. So, and I'm sure that you get a lot of chatter and a lot of debate that goes on after you've announced the scoring. Anything that stuck out to you in the last 24 hours that you said, oh my God, this is pretty cool?
I don't know that there has been. I think it's all pretty cool. Like nothing is standing out as cool. I think it's all pretty cool that people are digging in and trying to figure out the scoring. I love watching it every year. I love watching people do their own research and data on it. I love people who share their research and data to other, potential players in SFB. It goes right back to that community thing, which is very fun to see people helping each other. I don't know that there's anything specifically that I've seen as far as it, but there has been a good amount of talk that I hadn't considered a whole lot, only a little bit, where, some of those big play guys, those Jameson Williams, those Alec Pierces, those big play guys, like an Alec Pierce no longer goes from, sometimes startable, not always startable, to just throw them in your flex anyway, just in case, because that big play bonus is so big that if he hits one, it's huge. Yeah,
and one of the things that I think I actually put this in the chat room last night. I said, how fast will it be before football guys? I love football guys. They do a great job, and I know you do as well. How quickly will we get a cheat sheet from them? And lo and behold, it was already out.
So quick.
And here's what I noticed, and I watched your draft. And it was interesting to watch the draft unfold last night, the little mock draft you guys did. But if you look at football guys' cheat sheet, and I looked at it again today, there are, out of the first 2 rounds, there are 15 wide receivers in that ranking. 2 tight ends, we know who they are. 3 running backs, we kind of know who they are. And 4 quarterbacks. That tells me that the wide receiver is going to get a lot of play early on and often in these drafts. But, you get these live drafts, things can change.
Yep. The problem is with how limited we are with the 2 platforms. Like,
I was just going to ask you that question. Good.
Wide receivers, I had to there wasn't a great middle. It was either running backs were dominant or what I did, which is wide receivers are a little strong, but it's a lot better than the alternative, really.
Well, you took the first guy that I'm hoping that he sits there at number 2, because I will go with Gibbs at 2.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of step back a little bit because, and again, as we get kind of close to the conclusion of this, you are such a central figure in the industry, and people listen and hear what you have to say. And our industry has changed so dramatically over the last decade with betting and all the creator content, new technology.
Yep.
What excites you most? I'd love to hear your opinion. What excites you most about where the industry is heading?
I think it's going to, I want to see a lot of really like cool people continue to use their voice out there. I feel like you're never going to be able to replicate with some of that technology the voice and the entertainment level of creators out there. I'm really looking forward to all the new games and tools that are going to be able to be built now by creative people out there in this space that didn't have the technical know-how in the past, or didn't have the maybe funds to be able to do some of the cool things that they want to do. I think research is going to be much easier to do, both for creators and for your average fantasy players. I think it's going to up the game for everybody. I'm intrigued by a lot of what's coming. Uh, yeah, I don't really have a single one, but I'm excited to see where things go for sure.
Yeah, and I think I already know the answer to this question, because I know that you focus so intently around this. But I mean, how do you think the fantasy football content and the community engagement, don't you think that's going to continue to evolve and evolve over the next few years?
Yeah, I think it will. It's become a little harder on some platforms than it used to be, but it feels like we're still finding our pockets where we're able to connect and communicate, and there's enough people in each of those spaces, or crossing streams, so to speak, in several of those spaces, that the community is still continued to stick together. And I do really hope that Fantasy Cares and the Fishbowl continue to be some kind of unifying place for that as well.
Well, it still is, and as I said in the beginning, I think it is the most watched and respected event of the year, and I think you should be extremely proud of what you guys have created, what you've done over the years. And to that point, I always like to share with my listeners, when I talk to people like yourself who have been very successful in their journey, is there anything what advice would you give somebody who's about to build a new business, about credibility and relationships? Any advice that you'd like to give them?
Yeah, I mean, both of those two things are huge in this industry. Is
Oh yeah.
don't burn bridges.
Yep.
That's probably number one, but I feel like that goes for it anywhere. I would say be trustworthy. That's the kind of thing, like, where if you have conversations with people and you're consistently trustworthy, they're going to be willing to partner with you on things, or talk to you about things, run ideas by you on things, and bring you into things. No, the relationships in this industry are really everything. I don't know that I can, like, I have a friend in the industry who's had several jobs in this industry, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know that I have permission to quote him. That goes along with that trust. But he once told me, I don't really know many people at all in this industry who have gotten jobs in this industry that it wasn't based on a personal relationship. Like, submitting a blind resume rarely gets you a job in this space. It's the connections you've made, which it honestly feels pretty accurate. I'm sure there's some of it, on the other side, but really relationships help get you in this industry and keep you in this industry.
Well, yeah, and you've been involved in the FSGA for many years, and I would collectively add to that there's one thing about the FSGA and what you've created is it's really a sense of community. Everybody rallies around
Yep.
everybody, and it is a sense about building trust and credibility. That goes a long ways in
Mhm.
building whatever you're trying to accomplish going
Yeah.
forward.
And
So
FSGA.
I always
Yep.
love to end a little like personal reflection, and you've
Sure.
got some great personal reflection here. And so when you look back at everything, and you've had a tremendous amount of accomplishments, look back at everything Scott Fishbowl and Fantasy Cares have accomplished. What are you
Mhm.
most proud of?
It probably goes back to just the idea of adding a charitable element to leagues, and the fact that so many have done it now. We have charity tournaments now out there constantly for the last 4, 5, 6 years that just did not exist, when SFB started. I love seeing that. I'm I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment, is just the amount of charitable efforts surrounding fantasy. Honestly, I think it's allowed there were days in fantasy football, fantasy sports past where it was looked on more like, the sleazy gambling of the 90s or something. You know what I mean? Like it was not looked on in the greatest light. And I think this has allowed the industry to be seen as a positive, that it can do positive things. So that might be one of the things. And just to touch on the thing you said before, that FSGA and the expo and the fishbowl and live events and all these things are incredible ways to meet people who are doing work in this industry, business, creator, whatever, and make those personal relationships. There's nothing better than those face-to-face meetings. That online is great as well, but those face-to-face ones at FSGA, at the expo, at an SFB live event, man, they go far. It's wonderful what those can do.
Am I going to see you in Canton? Are you coming to Canton?
You will see me in Canton. If you're in Philly, I'll see you in Philly.
I'll be both.
Yep.
I now have a responsibility to be at all those conferences, I think. So
Nice.
So outside of fun, again, personal reflection again, outside of fundraising totals and league growth, if somebody was to write a book about you and say, okay, what do you want the lasting impact on the fantasy sports community? What would it be? What would the story be told about you?
It's still the charitable element part, but I would love if people could remember that I'm the one that brought Devi to the industry. Every site out there now has Devi rankings and stuff, and I feel like it's one of those things that I'm like, I feel like 2% of the fantasy industry knows he knows my early days of bringing that into the fantasy industry. I don't know, maybe that's just a slight me thing that I that was my baby, and it feels like a lot of people don't realize that about my career. So I'd want that to be in there somewhere, but mostly it's, the fantasy care stuff. I'd want people to know what we've done here and bring it, be inspired by it.
Yeah, and I've said this to you once before when I interviewed you, and I know you're very humble about it, but I truly believe this is that I told people, I said, think about Scott Fish is when he walks in a room, it's like Elvis has walked into the room. That's the kind of iconic, movement that you have within this industry, and that's a reflection, quite frankly, of the community that you've built and relationships that you've built. So that's that. I think you should write a book, Scott, at some point to talk about this whole experience. Either that, or you're going to have to turn over the legacy to your son to run it. Yes,
I could do that as well. And the walking into the room thing, it's probably just because I dress down everywhere. I don't dress up for even at FSJA. I feel like I'm probably one of the least dressed guys. So maybe that's part of it.
Well, Scott, this was an incredible conversation as always. I mean, what you've built with the Fishbowl Fantasy Cares goes far, far, far beyond fantasy football. I mean, you've helped create a community that connects people, supports meaningful causes. And I think it truly does remind everyone that this industry can make a real difference off the field as well. I say this in again, with all true appreciation. I'm very honored to be part of Scott Fishbowl again this year. I love coming to the Vegas Live event. That's great. I will be there. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us and share your story. Talk about the scoring, of course,
Yep.
Your perspective and everything that, continues to drive your passion for this industry and this community. So I personally thank you. And to everyone who's listening, please make sure you follow Scott's work and, more importantly, support Fantasy Cares. And if you ever, and I say this again, if you ever get the opportunity to be part of Scott Fishbowl, and there's a lot of them out there, you'll quickly understand why it's become the most respected event in fantasy football. So, Scott, thank you again for your time. Thanks for sharing the journey. Thanks for your input, your insights, always. But before you leave, there's always one last question I ask all my guests.
Oh, boy.
It's an easy one. It's a fairly easy question. What is your favorite sports movie?
Oh, wow. Wow, that is... So different times of year, it's different things. Like in summertime, I like watching like Rookie of the Year and stuff with my son, and I love Little Giants also with my son. I am a big fan of Draft Day, The movie. I know, like I was part of the marketing of that. People don't know that.
Really?
I actually had quotes on marketing material. I got to see it as a sneak peek. Remember the Titans is up there. I don't know that I have a super favorite, but let's just go because it's unpopular. Let's just go Draft Day because it's fun to watch with my son. But
It's funny because my producer Nick and I, we've done many of these podcasts. We haven't had a duplicate yet,
yeah,
and we still
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
And
Honestly, the most rewatchable is probably Rookie of the Year or Little Big League. To be honest, Little Big League being a Minnesota movie, but Rookie of the Year probably has the most memories for me. Not just that time when I was young, because I'm about the same age as Ian Nicholas or whatever, Thomas Ian Nicholas, something like that. But also watching with my kids, so that's a wonderful thing to have.
again, Scott, thank you very much for your time. I know time is precious for you these days. I know you're burning the candle at both ends, and I wish you all the best. Again, I'll see you in Vegas. I'll see you in Canton. I'll see you in Philly.
All summer, man. All summer, I'll see you. That'll be
I
great.
know. I know. We're going to get tired of each other, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And thank you for all the kind words, by the way. Tons of kind words on this about me and Fantasy Care. It's just truly thank you.
You got a great, and you've got a great team there as well. I mean, the creative part of what you guys do is off the charts in my mind. So again, Scott, thank you. And as always, thanks everyone for listening. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode, and we'll see you next time under the hoodie.